Welcome to Motivation AI Matters, the podcast where we talk about personalized communication, marketing disruption, and why motivation AI matters for your business. I'm Alex Olesen, here to help you channel the power of language to motivate your customers to engage and act. All right, we're here with our first guest, Lisa Spira, the head of content intelligence at Persado. Lisa, we're very excited to have you. Why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your background?
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be the first guest and talk about motivation AI with you. I'm the head of content intelligence at Persado, as you said. And content intelligence, my team is the language experts at Persado. Content intelligence is the intersection between creativity and data. It's data-backed content creation, and it's identifying what is good content. So we work really closely with the data science team to train this AI to hold its hand, really, and interpret what it knows. And I got into this because I have always loved language, and I especially always loved names. I'm an onomastician, which is a type of linguist with an expertise in names. And one of the things I always loved about names was the pattern recognition element. And so through that interest, I stumbled into my first job at a different marketing technology company whose technology was really based around the origins of names. And that's how I got enamored with the whole field of marketing language and AI and technology and product building. And that's how I landed at Persado. So that's my story of getting here. And my team is made up of people with all sorts of unusual stories about how we've gotten into content intelligence. There's no one particular background that makes someone good at this, except maybe just a true love of language.
I love that. And I think it's such a unique differentiator for the Persado experience, not only internal for other Persadoans like myself, but working with our clients to understand what motivates their consumers to interact with their brands and create happy customers for life. I want to touch a little bit more on motivation AI. Can you, in your own words, define what motivation AI means? And then who is motivation AI important to?
So there's a difference between wants and needs, and then actually taking that next step to act. And that's where motivation AI comes into play. We all want things, we all need things, and we all buy a lot of things. But how do you motivate someone to make that purchase, and not just make that purchase, but buy your specific product right now across this channel at this moment in time? It's about action. We have to motivate action. I can want a lot of things, but I'm not necessarily going to click that ad or see that email and take the action. And so what motivation AI is an AI that uses language to motivate consumers to take an action, to click, to purchase, to convert, to make a connection, whatever that action is. And I think that motivation AI is really the important piece in doing this, and it's really grounded in the language.
I love that. Motivating the next best action for consumers to take, and I know we'll talk about some of the challenges that marketers face. We'll talk about that next. But one of the things that I like about the way you define motivation AI is that you are understanding the next best action across the entire consumer journey. In fact, some of the best use cases for motivation AI are around customer service and being able to deliver a consistent on-brand experience well beyond a first purchase or initial transaction.
One of the most interesting things I've seen in the data working with this tool is how, depending on what action you're trying to motivate, different language might work better. So we always work with our clients to choose what they're measuring. What is important to them? Is it clicks? Is it less calls to the call center in servicing? Is it items in the cart? Is it actual emails back? There are lots of different things it could be. Some are very common, some are very uncommon, but we can motivate all of them, but we won't use the same language to motivate all of them. The language that entices people to open an email may not be the language that motivates someone to click through that email to the landing page. And it may not be the same language that would motivate someone all the way through to putting the item in their cart.
100%. And actually, one of the most interesting projects my team has worked on with yours was understanding that what motivates consumers actually changes over time. So we took a look at banking and credit card data as well as retail conversions. And what we found out was depending on how far the average consumer's dollar goes, and this is important, especially in a period of inflation like we're experiencing now, depending on how far the average consumer dollar goes, that influences what motivates a consumer to interact with a brand. And the language that motivates consumers to click on an ad or interact with an email is actually completely different when consumers are spending more or when they're saving more of their paycheck. A very unique insight that I think we uncovered together with your team.
Oh, 100%. That was one of my favorite things that we worked on because context is really just so important to language resonating.
Absolutely. And I know we're answering my next question without explicitly getting to it, but what issues or challenges that marketers face can motivation AI help solve?
One of the challenges that marketers face today is a wealth of data, more data than they know what to do with. And data can be scary, and mountains of data typically leave you with no direction. You have all the pieces there in front of you, but you don't know what to do with them, or you don't have the talent or the direction. So I think that data is a huge challenge, and I think Motivation AI really helps solve this because it is a platform that is grounded in data. Within our platform, we do testing through experimental design, which is like A/B testing, but essentially it's A through Q testing with an exponent. It's really hard to understand. It's really complicated, but it's a lot. And what it does is measure the minute elements within the language and how they work and how they motivate, what works best and how. And then we use all of this data to continually train our AI so that it learns. And so I think it's really exciting because what we've done is we've harnessed so much data into knowledge that can really drive consumer behavior. So I think it's Motivation AI is really great at solving a data challenge.
Absolutely. And I think the type of data challenge that motivation AI solves is a very interesting way to address something that is going to challenge marketers in the future with the depreciation of pixels and cookies. So I talk to, and I know that your team talks to marketers, a lot of our clients, and one of the things that they are focused on is understanding what motivates their consumer base without necessarily needing to collect personally identifiable information or PII. And one of the most interesting case studies that I've worked on at Persado with our clients is a cashback or miles redemption case study with a co-branded credit card. And what's interesting is for the same cardholders, whether a consumer prefers cash back in their pocket or miles redeemed for experiences, the language that motivates them to interact with the points redemption platform is completely different. So that's a great example of taking demographic data and not relying on a pixel or a cookie to garner the same understanding of what motivates a consumer and create an authentic experience between the consumer and the brand?
Absolutely. I think as we move into a world where cookies are less reliable and less the future of data and marketing efforts and personalization efforts, moving into the world of motivation AI, where we build segments differently and we look for language segments, that's going to be just so important.
Absolutely. So I think we've done a great job for the listeners of shaping what the market looks like, talking about motivation AI as a category. I want to shift a little bit to give the listeners some background on Persado. I know both you and I work there, but for the listeners, let's start from square one. What is Persado?
Persado is the company that created Motivation AI. Persado has a platform that motivates consumers to take action, and it does this through language. It generates messages by leveraging the world's most advanced language knowledge base of more than 1 million tagged and scored words and phrases. But to me, Persado is a playground for language innovation. At Persado, we're focused on language that motivates action, but that's a small scope and it's a huge opportunity. So we're continuously training our AI to write in new ways, to look for different types of patterns, to become something it's not yet doing. To me, it's a playground. And from my vantage point, Persado blends the best of human and machine to drive results for our clients. And those results are actions.
I love that. A playground for language innovation. I do want to touch on something you mentioned earlier about experimental design. One of the unique things that we get to work on with clients is not so much understanding the optimum message to send, that's important, but I think ruling out messages that to the tribal knowledge, to the creative teams at our clients might seem like a good fit, but backed up by the linguistics and the natural language process you've been talking about, Persado can actually help eliminate years of suboptimal decision making and creative. In fact, our clients have reported that they learn things about their audience 50, that's 50 times faster than if they had done traditional A/B testing. So talk about a great playground for innovating language and understanding what motivates your customers.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the Persado knowledge base has something like the equivalent of 645 years worth of testing inside of it. It's some large number like that, but it's really a mind-boggling stat, but that is how our customers learn so much faster. And one of the other things that they can do is they can test hypotheses with us. We can, of course, let Motivation AI suggest how we're going to test based on all of the data. But humans can have a hand in that and say, this is what I think works. This is what I've learned from other testing, or this is what the creative team is really excited about. And then we can test and we can put math behind it and then we can know, which is always really cool.
Absolutely. And I think that's my favorite part of the job is working with our diverse yet very experienced customer base to understand consumer behavior, not only within their industry, but across industries. And Persado's got a great roster of clients that sit across all parts of financial services, so banks, credit cards, wealth management. But Persado also does a lot of work within travel and hospitality, within retail. So those are the main verticals that we have. Persado has others that are covered. But more generally, what type of company typically benefits from working with Persado?
The companies that benefit the most are the companies who are willing to experiment. You have to have a testing mindset to truly take advantage of everything that Motivation AI has to offer. I think a great fit is a company who wants creative language in marketing, who wants data behind that, who is tired of chasing the whims of human copywriting and tired of the risk of intuition and hunches. So, a company that is excited about testing and excited about data is really a great fit, and a company that wants to learn and is willing to change.
I love that. Avoiding the risk of intuition. It's really interesting to me some of the insights that Persado's customer uncovers when they're live on the platform. Persado actually deconstructs every message into various components to understand, is the formatting driving an increase in engagement? Are the emotions that are evoked capturing the audience's attention? Are the positioning or calls to action things or message elements that need to be looked at when considering the optimum creative? One of my favorite projects we've worked on with clients is understanding where placement and card art should go during an acquisition campaign for a credit card. And one of Persado's clients actually found out that eliminating a human model from the image of a credit card campaign and only showing card art, combined with the optimum language to capture consumer attention, that creative only showing the card art was twice as effective at driving clicks and ultimate conversions. So Persado customers have a wealth of knowledge that they sit on when they work with Motivation AI.
The formatting stuff is really cool because the platform can test into all of those things. Although we primarily optimize language, and that's usually where most of the power is. And also, not every channel has a visual, although more and more they do. But we can also test into those visual elements, and those can be big things. You're talking about the card art, but they can even be smaller things, whether you use bold or you use capital letters, or what the spacing is, how big or small the button is, what color. And you can test into all of those things through the platform, which is really powerful.
It is very powerful. And that goes back to a point we were talking about earlier about, and I love the way that you phrased it, avoiding the risk of intuition. I think in my experience working with Persado's customers that eliminating messages that the human intuition might say will work, but science and natural language processing and linguistics say won't. It's a great way to artfully combine the human and the machine. So maybe taking a step back a bit from marketing, from Motivation AI, in your experience working with leaders across industries, what do you typically see leaders investing in who are getting it right with digital transformation?
I think that they're investing in AI today. I think now is a turning point where we're all seeing that AI doesn't have to be scary and that it can have powerful results. But more than that, that it can augment your humans. It won't necessarily, or I mean, it won't. I firmly believe that AI isn't going to take away our jobs. It's going to change our jobs. It's going to create new jobs that work with AI in new ways. It will eliminate some jobs and create a whole host of others. So I think that today leaders across brands are really embracing that AI can be a powerful source of good in their company and it can be transformational for their business. I think that recently with Dolly 2, people all over have been able to see AI generating content. And that's quite a bit different from what Persado does. But I think it has been eye opening to so many people that when you can see it, what it is, an AI working, that you can be more willing to embrace AIs of different sorts or a motivation AI.
DALL-E 2 is a great example. For the listeners, DALL-E 2 is actually AI that is submitting art to competitions and is, in some cases, beating human submitted pieces. And there's a language example as well with GPT-3 that has submitted AI authored poems and short stories that have actually won prizes competitive against humans. And I agree with you, at least I think it's a great point. The vision is for machine and human to complement each other, to understand holistically what is motivating a consumer to choose a brand and choose to stay loyal to it over time. So let's focus a little bit more on the work that you do at Persado. I know that you speak to Persado's clients regularly, and you've got a great perspective of the work that they're doing. But talk to me a little bit about what content intelligence does at Persado.
We do a little bit of everything. We sort of sit in the middle of data science, product, and operations. And so we're at the nucleus of creation of content at Persado. So what do? We write words. We teach an AI to write words. We train it. We give it thumbs up, thumbs down on how it's doing. We analyze a lot of data coming out of different AI systems that are trained to do very specific things. We create insights. We really, just because an AI is learning, well, the humans want to learn too. What does it know? So we create ways of interpreting and understanding the language data that we have, visualizing that, and tagging content. It's a lot. We also hold its hand. Sometimes we maybe a use case or a channel that the AI has never seen before. So we'll help it along, step in if it hasn't seen enough data to do something yet. We're its partner. And yeah, so content intelligence is really just at the nucleus of all things language creation at the central point of our product.
That's awesome. And I love how you personify the AI too, because that's where I really do believe that brands and marketers who get motivation AI right really embrace the idea of taking the creative spirit of an in-house team or an agency team where that's the operating model, and supplementing that expertise and knowledge with math, with experimental design, and with linguistics. We've talked a little bit as we've been going on about some of our favorite case studies and insights. Any that you've left off the list that you want to talk to our listeners about?
I have two that I would love to share. I think they're pretty interesting insights. One that I would love to share is an insight into reinvention. Susan Lee from my team worked on this project where she was looking at 6 years of email, Facebook, and push notification campaigns between 2015 and 2021. And she was looking at the idea of new year, new you. That phrase and that idea, variations on that phrase, is really big with marketing every new year, especially in retail, but not only. You see it across industries. And it was the least inspiring concept in retail when tested against other language. It just, we proved over those years that time and time again, it doesn't work. And what we were able to do is find alternatives that tapped into different motivations that are not reinvention, that work better at New Year. So for example, individuality, New Year, celebrating the same you, or this year, permission to just do you, or freedom, do what you love in 2023, no resolutions, no problem. Or hype, this year will be awesome, we can sense it. So there's so many ways that you can speak to the new year if you want to bring that into your marketing. And the one that so many people with intuition just go to immediately, and we all think about, is new year, new you, but don't do that.
How interesting. I know you've got a second one, but what a great example of probably a campaign that many creative teams would not address year over year and assume that it would work simply because it's a new year. I love that example. What's your second one?
My second one is about into the language of deadlines. And this research was done by Sheena Vera on my team. And she did work, sort of a case study around the language of tax season. And What we found is that it's not line driven language, such as urgency or like alert language, that works the best to motivate actions when deadlines are looming. As tax season approaches, for example, more gentle language that nudges the customer, think encouragement, is more effective. The language should ensure that the process will be painless and encourage customers to read the message to get further information. So we don't want to go all ASAP now, sort of really intense or deadline driven. We want to go a lot more softer. So we have language like you're still on track for filing your taxes on time. There's still time to file for your refund. It's easy to file. We recommend starting here. And that this gentler language proved to be a lot more effective as the deadline approached. And in fact, counterintuitively, as the deadline gets closer, more gentle language worked better.
That makes a lot of sense to me. I could see how, on the surface, marketers might think you need to ratchet up the urgency the closer a non negotiable deadline approaches. But taxpayers are aware. They know they need to get their taxes in. So maybe one less nagging force, one less annoyance, a little bit gentler language can make a big difference in whether or not consumers respond well to the marketing that they're seeing.
And I think your reaction right there is one of the things that I love about Motivation AI, because when you stop and you think about it, you think, oh, yeah, I totally see why that makes sense, even though it is against everyone's initial intuition, the intuition being deadline, urgency, dates. So, yeah, and we see that time and time again with Motivation AI.
Absolutely. So, in your experience working with Persado's customers, talking to marketers out around the industry, I know we've talked a lot about marketing and data teams working together. There's a lot of data that flows through Motivation AI platform like Persado. What are two or three things that data and marketing teams can do to work closely together and get started with Motivation AI?
The first thing to do is to embrace that something that seems diametrically opposed can really belong together. In the case of Persado, that's math and words. Here we are trying to optimize words and measuring them with math. And I think that there are a lot of people who grow up saying, I'm a math person, or I'm a words person, or I'm none of those, and put themselves in some other bucket and just decide that it is opposed. And so my first piece of advice is to embrace the other one, whatever the other one is in your organization, and build connections and figure out how those different skill sets or data sets can come together and enhance value. I think that's one of the things that Persado does really well. And I mean, to punctuate, I report to the CTO, who is a data scientist, and my background is linguistics, but it works well for us to keep those ties closely together.
I think it does. And what better example of putting our money where our mouth is, showing two diametrically opposed disciplines, data science and linguistics, working together internally at Persado. And that's been my experience working with Persado's customers as well. I think many times the best insights that Persado surfaces with our customers are moments where the customer sits back and says, I've had a hunch that this was a trend that we were seeing, but we couldn't necessarily prove it with math. And vice versa. The customers are sitting on a lot of data and just want to understand, how can we communicate a phrase or set of emotions that motivates our consumers to interact with us. Well, Lisa, thank you very much. I have one final question, but I really appreciate your time and being our first guest. We've talked a lot about the Motivation AI category. We've introduced Persado as a Motivation AI platform. What's next for Persado, and what's next for your team?
We will continue to explore new types of motivations within language. and translating what we find into new verticals, new channels, new use cases beyond marketing, an expansion of the machine and human understanding, which will lead us to better insights if we can continue to build that relationship between humans and machines, and continuing to make motivation AI really dynamic in real time, taking its decision engine to the moment where the customer is. I think there's a really exciting future in a lot of different directions within motivating language. So I'm really excited about many of the next phases of research and testing and building that we have happening at Persado.
Awesome. I love that. And I like bringing the motivation AI engine to each moment of customer interaction, no matter if it's attracting new customers, retaining them as loyal customers, or delivering that ever important great customer service. Well, Lisa, thank you very much for being our first guest. This was Lisa Spira, the head of content intelligence at Persado. Thank you very much, Lisa.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Of course. Thanks for joining us. We'll catch you next time here on Motivation AI Matters. Until then, take a moment to make sure you're subscribed and get to know Motivation AI better by checking out the resource library at persado.com.